The clock tower struck midnight as Eleanor Hayes stepped onto platform 13, her weathered leather suitcase heavy in her hand. She had searched for this place for 3 years, following whispers and half-remembered stories her grandmother had told her as a child. The directions had been vague, almost dreamlike. Take the last train on Tuesday. Get off at the station that doesn't exist. Look for the door behind the old bookshop. Yet here she stood, having followed those impossible instructions, and somehow they had led her exactly where she needed to be. The platform was unlike any station Eleanor had ever seen. Victorian lampposts cast pools of golden light across marble floors inlaid with constellations that seemed to shift and breathe. The ceiling stretched impossibly high, disappearing into a darkness that sparkled with what might have been stars or might have been something else entirely. The air itself felt different here, thicker, sweeter, charged with possibility. A few other travelers waited in the warm glow, each lost in their own thoughts, their faces carrying the same mixture of hope and exhaustion that Eleanor felt in her bones. She had come here to find her way back to something she'd lost, though she couldn't quite name what it was. A sense of wonder, perhaps, a belief in magic that the grinding wheels of adult life had slowly worn away. Or maybe just a good night's sleep, free from the anxiety that had plagued her for months. That tightness in her chest that never quite went away. The feeling of living someone else's life while her true self waited patiently in the wings. A woman sat on a bench nearby, knitting something that glowed faintly blue with each stitch. The needles clicked in a rhythm that seemed to harmonize with Eleanor's heartbeat. Beside her, a young man clutched a violin case, his fingers tapping restlessly against the worn leather, as if playing silent melodies only he could hear. An elderly gentleman in a tweed suit read a newspaper that seemed to be writing itself, the headlines shifting and changing as he turned each page. None of them spoke, but there was a comfortable silence among them, the quiet understanding of fellow travelers embarking on the same mysterious journey. Eleanor set down her suitcase and pulled out the ticket that had arrived in her mailbox 3 days ago. It was made of thick cream paper that felt like silk between her fingers, with her name written in flowing script that seemed to move like water. Below her name, simple words: the midnight train to Aurora Valley. Departure when you're ready. Return when you're renewed. She had not ordered this ticket, had not signed up for any mysterious journey. Yet somehow, she knew it was meant for her, had been waiting for her, perhaps for her entire life. The ticket had appeared on a Tuesday morning, tucked between her electric bill and a furniture store catalog. At first, she'd thought it was junk mail, some elaborate marketing scheme. But when she'd held it, really held it, she'd felt something. A pull, a recognition, a whisper that said, "This is what you've been waiting for." A sound began to build in the distance, a low melodic hum that made the air vibrate with possibility. The other travelers stirred, gathering their belongings with practiced movements that suggested they had made this journey before. The knitting woman smiled at Eleanor, her eyes kind and knowing, crinkled at the corners with the wisdom of someone who had seen much and judged little. "First time?" she asked, her voice like warm honey. Eleanor nodded, suddenly nervous. "Is it that obvious?" "You have the look," the woman said, tucking her glowing yarn into a carpet bag covered in patches from places Eleanor had never heard of. Crystalline shores, the whispering desert, the city of eternal autumn. The look of someone who's forgotten how to dream. "Don't worry, dear. The train remembers for you." Before Eleanor could ask what that meant, the train arrived. It didn't pull into the station so much as materialize, as if it had always been there and they simply hadn't been able to see it until that exact moment. The midnight train was a marvel of impossible engineering. A locomotive that seemed to be carved from moonlight and midnight blue metal, with windows that reflected not the station around them, but distant landscapes Eleanor had never seen. Steam rose from its engines, but instead of smoke, it was made of silver mist that smelled of jasmine and old books and rain on summer grass. The carriages stretched back into the distance, each one unique. Some appeared to be made of polished wood with brass fittings, others of crystal that chimed softly in an unfelt breeze, and still others of materials Eleanor couldn't identify. Something between water and glass, between starlight and steel. The conductor stepped down from the first carriage, and Eleanor's breath caught. He was tall and ageless, with dark skin that seemed to hold galaxies beneath its surface and eyes that changed color with each blink. Green, then gold, then the deep purple of twilight. He wore a uniform of midnight blue with silver buttons that looked like tiny moons, and a cap adorned with a badge in the shape of a compass rose. "Good evening, travelers," he said, his voice resonating with harmonics that made Eleanor feel both fully awake and peacefully drowsy at once. "Welcome aboard the midnight train to Aurora Valley. I am Conductor Orion, and I will be your guide on this journey. Please step aboard and find the carriage that calls to you. Your seat will be waiting." The elderly gentleman was first up the steps, moving with surprising sprightness. The young man with the violin followed, then the knitting woman, who paused to pat Eleanor's hand encouragingly before ascending. Eleanor picked up her suitcase and approached the train. Up close, she could see that the metal of its construction was engraved with intricate patterns, mathematical equations that dissolved into poetry, musical notation that became maps, stories written in languages both familiar and utterly alien. She reached out and touched the side of the train, and it was warm, pulsing with a gentle heartbeat. "Don't be afraid," Conductor Orion said softly, appearing beside her with uncanny swiftness. "The train has been waiting for you, Eleanor Hayes. Your journey began long before you found that ticket. Tonight, you simply choose to continue it." "How do you know my name?" Eleanor asked, though somehow the question felt irrelevant. "The train knows all its passengers," he replied with a smile that held secrets and kindness in equal measure. "It knows what you've lost and what you're searching for. It knows the path you must take to find your way to Aurora Valley. Come, your carriage is the third one back, made of amber wood and starlight. You'll know it when you see it." Eleanor climbed the steps, which were solid beneath her feet despite looking like they were made of condensed clouds. Inside the train, the corridor stretched longer than should have been possible, lined with doors of different colors and styles. She walked past a red lacquered door from which came the scent of cinnamon, past a silver door that hummed with electricity, past a door that appeared to be made of living ivy. Then she saw it. The third door, just as Conductor Orion had said, was made of amber wood that glowed from within, and its handle was shaped like a constellation she almost recognized. Eleanor opened the door and stepped inside, and the journey truly began.